The grizzly bear sat outside the bedroom window like he did every night. Atlas weighed 1,500 pounds of muscle and fur, but he moved quietly when it mattered. Inside the small room, 7-year-old Lily Watson slept under blankets covered with stars and moons. The bear's dark eyes never left her window. 3 weeks had passed since the accident. That's what everyone called it. An accident. Lily's parents had been studying how Earth animals adapted to new worlds. They had been good people who asked too many questions. Now they were gone, and Lily lived with Beth Carver, the research station manager. Beth didn't believe in accidents anymore. She sat in the control room, staring at an encrypted message that had arrived an hour ago. The words were polite and official. Specialists would arrive tomorrow to collect Lily and take her somewhere safe. Somewhere far away. Beth had been a soldier before she became a scientist. She knew what official lies sounded like. Atlas made a low sound in his throat. Not quite a growl. More like a warning. Beth looked at the security screens. The bear hadn't moved from his spot in 12 hours. He had been Lily's shadow since the day her parents brought home a sick bear cub 5 years ago. The little girl had fed him with a bottle and slept next to him on the floor. As Atlas grew bigger, their bond grew stronger. Some people said it wasn't natural. Beth thought it was the most natural thing in the world. The research station sat deep in the mountains of Redwood Haven, a colony world where Earth's megafauna roamed free. Grizzly bears, wolves, and elk had been brought here to see if they could thrive under a different sun. Most animals did well. Atlas did better than well. He had been part of a special program, though the files about it were locked away in classified folders. Beth heard footsteps. Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. She wore pajamas with little bears printed on them. "Can't sleep?" Beth asked. Lily shook her head. "Atlas is worried." "How do you know?" "I can feel it." The little girl walked to the window. Outside, the massive bear turned his head to look at her. His eyes caught the light from inside. Something's wrong. Beth wanted to lie, to tell her everything would be fine. But Lily had already lost too much to lies. "I think you're right. Are bad people coming?" The question hit Beth like a punch. She knelt down to Lily's level. "I don't know for sure. But if they do, I won't let them hurt you." "Atlas won't either," Lily said with complete certainty. The security system beeped. Beth's eyes snapped to the screen. Perimeter sensors had detected movement in Sector 7 near the tree line. The readings were strange. Too precise for wildlife. Too careful. "Lily, go back to your room. Stay away from the windows." The little girl didn't argue. She had learned when to listen. As she left, Beth activated the station's defensive protocols. Lights dimmed to emergency settings. Blast shields began to close over windows. She pulled up the external cameras and switched to thermal imaging. There, a heat signature in the trees, roughly human-sized but wrong somehow. The temperature was too low, too controlled. Whatever was out, there didn't want to be seen. Beth grabbed her communicator. "Colonial Defense, this is Redwood Station 7. We have a potential hostile in our perimeter. Request immediate assistance." Static crackled. Then a calm voice responded. "Redwood 7, nearest patrol is 18 hours out. What's the nature of your threat?" 18 hours. They might as well have said 18 days. "Unknown intruder. I have a child on site who may be a target." "Understood. Maintain lockdown. Defense force is en route." The connection ended. Beth was alone with a little girl and a bear against something that moved like smoke through the forest. She went to Lily's room. The girl sat on her bed, hands folded in her lap. Atlas had somehow gotten inside. The bear filled half the room, his massive body pressed against the bed like a living wall. "I didn't let him in," Lily said quietly. "He just knew how to open the door." Beth looked at the door handle. It was bent downward, the metal twisted by incredible force. Atlas had learned to open doors. "It's okay," Beth said. She pulled a tablet from her pocket and began reviewing files. Her predecessor had left notes about Atlas, buried deep in the research archives. Enhanced cognition trials, neural mapping, experimental bonding protocols. The bear's brain had been altered when he was a cub, made sharper and more aware. He wasn't just smart for an animal. He was smart, period. And he knew Lily was in danger. Thunder rumbled in the distance, but the sky was clear. Beth checked the sensors again. The thermal signature had moved closer, now just 200 meters from the station's outer wall. It paused there, as if studying the building. Atlas raised his head. His nose twitched, sampling the air. A deep growl started in his chest, so low it vibrated through the floor. "He smells something," Lily whispered. The lights flickered. Beth's combat instinct screamed at her. She grabbed Lily and pulled her off the bed just as the window exploded inward. A bolt of superheated plasma turned the mattress into a ball of fire. The blast threw them all backward. Atlas moved faster than anything his size should move. He grabbed Lily's shirt in his teeth and dragged her toward the hallway. Beth scrambled after them, ears ringing from the explosion. Alarms shrieked through the station. Fire suppression systems sprayed foam over the burning room. Beth slammed her hand on the emergency panel, sealing the corridor with blast doors. They huddled in the hallway. Lily clung to Atlas's fur, eyes wide, but not crying. The bear positioned himself between her and every possible entrance. His body coiled and readied up. Beth's hand shook as she pulled up the exterior cameras. The thermal signature was gone. Whoever had fired that shot had already moved to a new position. Someone wanted Lily Watson dead, and they had just declared war on a grizzly bear who had other plans. Siren crouched in the darkness between two trees and cursed in 3 languages. The Vastari assassins' compound eyes processed information faster than most species could think, but right now that information made no sense. The target should be dead. One plasma bolt, precisely calculated, fired through a window at a sleeping child. Clean. Professional. Instead, something had moved the bed a full second before Siren pulled the trigger. The shot had hit empty space. Siren replayed the thermal footage captured by targeting sensors. A massive heat signature, ursine in shape, had reacted before the weapon discharged. Impossible. The plasma rifle made no sound when it charged. There was no way a simple animal could have known. But the target lived, and Siren's reputation was now on the line. The contract had been simple enough. Eliminate Lily Watson, last surviving member of a family that had become inconvenient to certain powerful interests. Her parents had been mediating trade negotiations between 3 species, and their proposed treaty would have cost the war industry billions. Dead mediators couldn't finish treaties. Dead children couldn't inherit their parents' diplomatic standing. Siren had killed 14 targets without a single failure. This child would have been 15. The assassin checked weapons and supplies. The plasma rifle still had 6 shots. Neural disruptors were fully charged. Tactical blade sharp enough to cut through bone. Camouflage field generator working perfectly. More than enough to handle 1 human and whatever local wildlife got in the way. Siren began moving toward the research station again. Vastari didn't give up. Their species had perfected patience over millions of years. One setback meant nothing. Inside the station, Beth worked frantically at the control panel. She had sealed off the damaged bedroom and rerouted power to defensive systems. Not that they had many defenses. Research stations weren't built to withstand military attacks. Lily sat in the corner of the safe room, arms wrapped around Atlas's thick neck. The bear hadn't stopped watching the door since they had entered. His breathing was deep and steady, but Beth could see the tension in every muscle. "Why do they want to hurt me?" Lily asked. Her voice was small but steady. She had cried when her parents died. Now she just sounded tired. Beth didn't know how to answer. How did you explain politics and greed and murder to a 7-year-old? Some people are afraid of what your family represents. Peace, understanding, things that make their weapons obsolete. That's stupid. Yes, it is. Atlas made a huffing sound that might have been agreement. Beth had stopped being surprised by how much the bear seemed to understand. She had reviewed more of the classified files during the lockdown. Atlas's neural enhancement had been more successful than the researchers had ever reported. Brain scans showed activity patterns that matched human problem solving. The bear could think, plan, maybe even predict, and right now he was predicting danger. The ventilation system kicked on with its usual hum. Beth glanced at the environmental controls, then froze. The air circulation had been shut down manually. She hadn't done that. Atlas suddenly surged to his feet, nearly knocking Lily over. He charged across the room and slammed his massive paw into the ventilation grate. Metal buckled and tore free from the wall. A faint green mist began seeping through the opening. Gas. Someone had pumped gas into their air supply. Beth grabbed Lily and ran for the door, but Atlas was already ahead of her. The bear crashed into the climate control panel on the wall, smashing it with controlled fury. Sparks flew. The ventilation system groaned and died completely. The green mist stopped flowing. What little had entered began to dissipate in the still air that Beth's heart hammered in her chest. If Atlas hadn't smelled that toxin, if he hadn't acted immediately, they would all be unconscious by now. Or dead. Good boy, she whispered, though the words felt absurd. Atlas wasn't a pet performing tricks. He was a guardian who had just saved their lives twice in 1 hour. Siren watched from the external maintenance shaft and recalculated. The neurotoxin should have worked. It was odorless, colorless, and fast-acting. Military grade. But the Ursine had detected it somehow and destroyed the delivery system before enough entered the room. This was no longer a simple elimination. This was a problem. The assassin accessed the contract database through an encrypted link. Target proving difficult, Siren reported. Local animal interference. Requesting permission to withdraw and reassess. The response came within seconds. Negative. Contract must be fulfilled within 48 hours. Failure will result in clan bond termination. Siren's mandibles clicked together in distress. Clan bond termination meant exile from Vastari society. It meant being erased from family records. It meant dying alone and forgotten. There was no choice now. The child had to die, no matter what stood in the way. The assassin checked the tactical blade and activated the camouflage field. Light bent around Siren's exoskeleton, rendering the Vastari nearly invisible. Only the faintest shimmer gave away movement. Time for a direct approach. Beth heard the breach alarm before she saw anything. Something had cut through the maintenance tunnel door, acid or plasma, or both. She pulled up the security feed, but the camera showed nothing. Just an empty corridor. Atlas saw it anyway. The bear's eyes tracked something that wasn't there, following movement that made no sense. He positioned himself in front of Lily and lowered his head, teeth bared. Then the air shimmered, and Siren appeared for just a moment before firing the neural disruptor. The beam hit Atlas square in the chest. Enough electrical charge to shut down an elephant's nervous system. The bear stumbled, legs shaking. His vision blurred, but he didn't fall. Siren fired again. Atlas took another hit and roared, the sound shaking dust from the ceiling. The bear's enhanced physiology, designed to survive this world's harsher conditions, gave him resistance the assassin hadn't planned for. Atlas charged. 1,500 pounds of muscle and fury and absolute determination. Siren barely rolled aside in time, camouflage field flickering and failing. For the first time in a long career, the assassin felt something unfamiliar, fear. Blood dripped from Siren's mandibles as the assassin retreated through the damaged corridor. The Vastari had lost 2 pieces of equipment and gained 3 broken ribs when that impossible bear had slammed into the wall beside them. Camouflage generators didn't help when your opponent could somehow sense exactly where you were. The assassin needed a new plan. The old plans kept meeting a 1,500-pound wall of fur and teeth. Beth dragged furniture across the central hub, building barriers that wouldn't stop a determined killer, but might slow one down. Atlas stood in the middle of the room like a monument to stubbornness. Burns marked his chest where the neural disruptor had hit him. His breathing came heavy and pained, but his eyes stayed sharp, watching every entrance. Lily sat with her back against the bear's flank. She had one small hand buried in his fur. "Does it hurt?" she asked. Atlas turned his massive head and touched her cheek with his nose. The gesture was gentle enough to make Beth's throat tighten. "He'll be okay," Beth said, hoping it was true. She had injected the bear with pain medication from the medical supplies, though she wasn't sure if the dosage was right. Grizzlies weren't her specialty. "He's tough." "I know." Lily's voice carried absolute confidence. "Atlas always protects me." Beth checked the security feeds again. Nothing visible, but that meant nothing. Their attacker had technology that could bend light and fool sensors. Standard defenses were useless. She pulled up the station's structural maps and began studying them with a soldier's eye. Maintenance tunnels, ventilation shafts, emergency access points. Dozens of ways for someone to enter. Too many to guard. Unless they made the intruder come to them on their terms. Atlas, Beth said carefully. The bear's ears swiveled toward her. I need you to trust me. She explained her plan using simple words and hand gestures. To her amazement, the bear seemed to understand. He made a low, rumbling sound and moved toward one of the corridors, deliberately knocking over a shelving unit as he went. The crash echoed through the station. Lily looked worried. What's he doing? Making noise. Creating a trail. Beth began placing motion sensors in specific locations, hiding them behind debris. We can't see our enemy, but maybe we can predict them. Atlas continued his work, damaging support structures in the maintenance tunnel. Not enough to cause collapse, but enough to create weak points. The bear was thinking tactically, setting a trap. Beth realized something that should have been obvious. The classified files had mentioned enhanced cognition, but she had still been thinking of Atlas as an animal. A very smart animal, but still limited. Now she understood. The bear's intelligence wasn't just enhanced. It was different, better in some ways. He thought in 3 dimensions, processed scents and sounds in ways human brains couldn't, and had an intuition about danger that bordered on supernatural that he knew how to hunt. And now he was teaching himself how to defend. Siren studied the station's layout from a safe distance. The Ursine and its handlers had gone quiet, which meant they were planning something. The Vastari had centuries of tactical training, but this situation felt wrong. Prey didn't set traps. Prey ran or hid. The bear wasn't acting like prey. The assassin decided to use fire. It was primitive but effective. Most species feared flame on an instinctive level. Siren placed incendiary charges around the station's perimeter, shaped to drive the occupants toward a single exit point. Once they ran, a clean shot would end this contract. The charges were set on a timer. 15 minutes until ignition. Inside the station, Atlas suddenly raised his head. His nostrils flared, testing the air. Then he moved with purpose, grabbing furniture in his jaws and dragging it toward the main corridor. He built a barrier, not randomly, but with clear intent. Creating fire breaks. Beth watched in amazement. You smell the accelerant. The bear huffed and continued working. He knocked over a water container, letting it flood a section of floor. Pushed filing cabinets against windows. Every action deliberate. He knows they're going to start a fire, Lily said. She got up and started helping, carrying smaller items where Atlas indicated with his nose. Beth activated the fire suppression system manually, overriding the automatic sensors. When the flames came, they would be ready. The perimeter erupted right on schedule. Fire bloomed around the station in a perfect circle. Siren watched from cover, waiting for panicked evacuation. Instead, foam sprayed from every external nozzle. The flames sputtered and died before they could spread. Someone had activated suppression systems before the fire even started. Impossible, unless they had known exactly when and where the attack would come. The assassin's tactical computer recalculated probability matrices. The target's defenders weren't just reacting anymore. They were predicting. That shouldn't be possible with the information they had access to, unless one of the defenders wasn't relying on information. Unless one of them was operating on pure instinct and sensory data that outmatched Vastari technology. Siren had hunted across a dozen worlds, had faced soldiers and bodyguards and security systems designed by the best engineers money could buy. But this was different. This was fighting an opponent that didn't think like a person, didn't react like a trained warrior, and couldn't be fooled by the usual tricks. This was fighting nature itself, concentrated into one protective, furious guardian. The assassin made a decision. Forget stealth. Forget tactics. Overwhelming force was the only option left. Siren pulled explosives from the equipment pack, enough to breach the station's main wall. Then armor-piercing rounds for the rifle, designed to punch through military-grade plating. If the bear wouldn't go down from neural disruption, maybe it would go down from having holes through vital organs. The Vastari checked ammunition counts and set the charges. This ended now. Inside the station, Atlas moved Lily into the most protected corner, surrounding her with makeshift barriers. The bear's eyes held something that looked almost human. Determination. Love. The absolute unwillingness to fail. Beth chambered around at her sidearm. It was a pathetic weapon compared to what was coming for them, but she would use it anyway. 18 hours, she muttered. The defense force was still 18 hours away. They just had to survive until dawn. The explosion came at 3 in the morning. The station's northern wall disappeared in a ball of fire and smoke. Metal screamed as support beams twisted. Emergency lights flickered and died. Then backup power kicked in, bathing everything in red. Beth's ears rang from the blast. She had known it was coming, felt it building in her gut, but the reality was still stunning. Professional demolition work. Whoever wanted Lily dead had serious resources. Through the smoke came something that looked like it had crawled out of humanity's nightmare fuel. Siren stood in the breach, fully visible now. The Vastari's exoskeleton gleamed black under the emergency lights. Compound eyes reflected red, like drops of blood. Mandibles clicked together in what might have been determination or hunger. The assassin held a rifle that hummed with barely contained energy. Atlas saw the intruder and roared. The sound came from somewhere deep and primal, a noise that had terrified prey animals for millions of years across a different world. The bear charged, moving faster than anything his size had the right to move. Siren fired. The armor-piercing round hit Atlas in the shoulder. The bear stumbled but kept coming. Another shot. This one caught him in the ribs. Blood sprayed across the floor. Still, Atlas didn't stop. The Vastari's tactical computer screamed warnings. Impact in 2 seconds. Recommended action, retreat. But Siren had nowhere left to retreat to. The contract demanded completion. Clan bond demanded honor. The assassin fired 3 more shots in rapid succession. Atlas took them all and crashed into Siren like a furry avalanche. They went down together in a tangle of claws and chitin. The bear's jaws closed on the Vastari's shoulder plate. Exoskeleton cracked. Siren shrieked and stabbed upward with the tactical blade. The knife went deep into Atlas's side. The bear's blood was hot and thick, but his jaws didn't release. He shook his head like he was breaking the neck of a salmon, and Siren's armor shattered completely. Beth aimed her pistol but couldn't get a clear shot. The 2 fighters moved too fast, locked together in a battle that was pure violence and desperation. Lily screamed Atlas's name. The bear heard her. Even bleeding, even dying, he heard his cub calling. Atlas released Siren and threw himself backward, putting distance between the assassin and the child. Siren rose on unsteady legs. Green ichor leaked from cracks in the exoskeleton. The Vastari's compound eyes were damaged, several lenses shattered. But the assassin still held the blade in one hand and pulled a plasma charge with the other. Contractual obligation, Siren said, in accented human speech. Nothing personal. The plasma charge armed with a high-pitched whine. Point-blank detonation would kill everything in the room. The assassin didn't care anymore. If the target died, the contract was fulfilled. Siren's own survival had become optional. Atlas understood enough. The bear's enhanced brain processed threat assessment faster than Beth could shout a warning. He lunged forward one more time, jaws aiming for the hand holding the charge. Siren triggered it early. The explosion was white-hot and blinding. The concussive force threw everyone backward. Beth hit the wall hard enough to crack ribs. Lily's screams cut off as she landed behind the barriers Atlas had built. The bear took the blast full on, his massive body absorbing energy meant to vaporize flesh. When the smoke cleared, Atlas lay on his side. Burns covered his chest and face. His breathing came in shallow, rattling gasps. But he had succeeded. The bear's last desperate lunge had knocked Siren's hand upward. The plasma had detonated above them instead of at ground level. Lily was alive. The little girl crawled out from behind the barriers, crying now. She ran to Atlas and threw her arms around his neck. No, no, no. Please don't die. Please. Beth forced herself to stand despite the pain in her ribs. She looked for Siren and found the assassin slumped against the far wall. The Vastari's exoskeleton was ruined, several limbs bent at wrong angles. The plasma explosion had caught them too, but Siren was still breathing, still moving. The assassin's good hand fumbled for a weapon. Any weapon. Beth raised her pistol with shaking hands and fired. The shot went wide, hitting the wall near Siren's head. She fired again. This one caught the Vastari in the shoulder. Siren looked at her with fractured compound eyes, then at the child crying over her dying guardian. Something shifted in that alien gaze. Not mercy, not quite regret. Maybe just the recognition of defeat. The assassin triggered something on their equipment belt. A recall beacon. The Vastari's ship would come. Automated systems activating for emergency extraction. Contract failed, Siren whispered. Witness marked. Then the assassin did something Beth didn't expect. Siren pulled a small device from a belt pouch and slid it across the floor toward her. A data chip. Contract origin, the Vastari said. Trade for life. Beth picked up the chip. Evidence. Names. The conspiracy that had killed Lily's parents and nearly killed the child. Everything she would need to expose the truth. Go, Beth said. Before I change my mind. Siren dragged themselves toward the breach in the wall. Moving slowly, trailing Icor. The assassin paused at the opening and looked back one more time at the bear and the crying child. Underestimated Earth species, Siren said. Will not make mistake again. Then the Vastari was gone, disappearing into the darkness beyond the station. Beth holstered her weapon and went to Lily. The girl cradled Atlas's massive head in her small lap, tears streaming down her face. He's still breathing, Beth said gently. We need to get him help. He saved me, Lily sobbed. He always saves me. The bear's eye opened slightly. He looked at Lily and made a sound, low and rumbling. Not quite a growl. Almost like words trying to form. Beth activated her communicator with trembling fingers. Colonial Defense, this is Redwood 7. We need immediate medical evacuation. Veterinary trauma team. Now. Defense Force is 10 minutes out, the voice responded. Hold position. 10 minutes. Atlas just had to hold on for 10 minutes. The bear's breathing grew weaker. The Defense Force arrived like thunder in the darkness. 3 shuttles landed in formation around the damaged research station. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready, only to find a little girl sitting in blood and debris next to a dying bear. Lieutenant Harris was the first through the door. She had seen combat on 4 worlds, but the scene in front of her made her stop cold. The child looked up with tear-streaked face and said, "Please help him." The trauma team went to work immediately. 2 veterinary specialists and 3 human medics surrounded Atlas, scanning his injuries with equipment that beeped urgent warnings. Gunshot wounds, plasma burns, deep lacerations, internal bleeding. The list kept growing. How is he still alive? One of the vets whispered. Stubborn, Beth said from where she sat against the wall, holding her own ribs. And he had something to protect. They loaded Atlas onto an emergency transport sled designed for large fauna. The bear's eyes stayed half open, tracking Lily even as they worked on him. When they tried to move him toward the shuttle, he made a sound of distress. Lily ran to his side. It's okay. I'm coming with you. I won't leave you. Only then did Atlas let them move him. The flight to the Colonial Medical Center took 20 minutes. Lily sat beside the transport sled the entire time, one hand on Atlas's paw. Beth sat across from them, clutching the data Chip's Siren had given her. Evidence of conspiracy, murder, and corruption. Lieutenant Harris leaned close to Beth. What happened here? Assassination attempt. Professional job. Vastari assassin. And the bear. Beth looked at Atlas. This impossible creature who had defied every tactical prediction and refused to fall no matter what was thrown at him. The bear decided the assassin was wrong. Is the target secure? The assassin retreated. Probably dead by now from the injuries. Beth handed over the data chip. But this will tell you who hired them. Who killed Lily's parents. Harris took the chip carefully. The child is a witness to multiple felonies. She'll need protective custody. She needs her guardian, Beth said firmly. And her guardian needs her. They reached the medical center just as Atlas's vital signs began to crash. The transport sled rushed through sterile hallways, medical staff shouting orders. Lily tried to follow, but a nurse gently held her back. You can't go in there, sweetheart. He needs me. Lily struggled against the hands holding her. Atlas needs to know I'm here. Beth pulled the girl close. They'll take care of him. They have the best equipment, the best doctors. But he's scared. I can feel it. And maybe she could. Beth had stopped questioning the bond between this child and her Grizzly guardian. Some connections went deeper than science could measure. They waited in a room with plastic chairs and old magazines. Beth got her ribs wrapped. Lily sat silent and still, staring at the doors that had swallowed Atlas. Hours passed. Dawn light began filtering through the windows that a doctor finally emerged, still wearing surgical gear stained with blood. She looked exhausted. "Are you Lily Watson?" The girl jumped up. "Is Atlas okay?" The doctor knelt down to Lily's level. "He's alive. We had to repair damage to his lungs, remove 3 bullets, and treat severe burns. He lost a lot of blood." She paused. "But he's alive. Can I see him? He's sedated. He won't wake up for a while." "I don't care. I just need to be with him." The doctor looked at Beth, who nodded. "Let her. Trust me, it matters." They brought Lily to a specialized recovery room built for megafauna. Atlas lay in a massive medical pod, tubes and monitors attached to his body. His chest rose and fell with mechanical assistance. Burns covered his fur in patches. Bandages wrapped around his torso. Lily walked to the pod and pressed her small hand against the transparent surface. "I'm here," she whispered. "You saved me again. You always save me." One of the monitors beeped. Atlas's heart rate had been elevated, stressed even in sedation. But the moment Lily touched the pod, his vitals began to stabilize. Heart rate slowed to steady rhythm. Blood pressure normalized. The attending nurse looked at the readings in confusion. "That's not possible." "Yes, it is," Beth said quietly. "He knows she's safe. That's all he needed." Lieutenant Harris appeared in the doorway. "We've analyzed the data chip. You were right. Conspiracy goes high. Involves 3 corporations and 2 government officials. They wanted the Watson family eliminated before the peace treaty could be finalized. What happens now? Now we make arrests. The child's testimony will be crucial, along with the evidence on that chip." Harris looked at Lily, still pressed against the medical pod. "She'll need to be in protective custody until the trials are complete." "She stays with her guardian," Beth said. It wasn't a suggestion. The bear is in no condition to protect anyone. The bear is exactly why she's still alive. And when he wakes up, the first thing he'll look for is her. If she's not there, if she's been taken away, you'll have a 1,500-pound problem that no amount of security can handle. Harris considered this. "You're asking me to grant legal guardianship to a bear. I'm asking you to recognize that these 2 are a family. They've earned that much." Over the next week, Lily barely left the recovery room. She slept in a chair next to the medical pod, read books out loud to the unconscious bear, told him stories about her parents and the adventures they would have when he woke up. Beth stayed close, handling the legal battles and investigative interviews. The conspiracy was unraveling. Arrests were being made. The peace treaty Lily's parents had worked on was being resurrected. On the 8th day, Atlas's eyes opened. The bear's vision was blurry from medication. Pain radiated through his body. But the first thing he saw was Lily's face pressed against the pod, smiling through tears. "You're awake," she said. "I knew you'd come back." Atlas tried to make a sound. It came out weak and rough, but it was there. The rumbling acknowledgement that he heard her. The medical team called it a miracle. Beth called it stubbornness. Lily just called it love. 6 months after the attack, Lily ran through mountain meadows under an alien sun. The grass reached her waist, full of flowers that didn't exist on Earth but smelled just as sweet. Behind her, moving slower but no less determined, Atlas followed. The bear had recovered beyond anyone's predictions. Scars marked his body where fur grew back, white instead of brown. He walked with a slight limp from the shoulder wound, but his eyes were clear and his spirit unbroken. Beth watched from the research station's new observation deck. The building had been rebuilt, stronger this time, with proper defensive systems. Not that they needed them anymore. The conspiracy had collapsed. 3 corporate executives were serving life sentences. 2 government officials had resigned in disgrace. The peace treaty was signed and working, and Lily Watson had become famous across 3 species as the child who survived with only a bear to protect her. "She looks happy," Lieutenant Harris said, standing beside Beth. The officer had been reassigned to permanent security detail for the station, though everyone knew there was no longer a threat. "I wasn't sure she'd recover from the trauma." "Children are resilient," Beth said, "especially when they have family." Atlas had been granted official guardian status through a legal precedent that would be studied for years. The The courts recognized that the bond between human and bear went beyond typical animal companionship. Lily had no other living relatives. Beth had adopted her formally, but everyone understood the real guardian was the one with fur and claws. The enhanced fauna program had been open to public scrutiny after the attack. When people learned what Atlas had done, support for the program increased dramatically. Other colonies requested their own guardian animals. Scientists wanted to study the neural enhancement process. Atlas became the first of a new category, sapient companion fauna. Not that the bear cared about fame or legal categories. He cared about one little girl who had fed him from a bottle when he was small and scared. Lily flopped down in the grass, laughing. Atlas lumbered over and collapsed beside her with a heavy thump. She used his side as a pillow, watching clouds drift across the purple-tinted sky. "What do you think they look like?" Lily asked, pointing at a cloud formation. Atlas huffed and tilted his head, actually seeming to consider the question. He raised one paw and made a sweeping motion. "You're right," Lily agreed. "Like a ship. A big one." Beth smiled. The bear's intelligence had become more obvious as he healed. He responded to complex questions with gestures and expressions. Understood multiple languages. Could open any door or container through observation and problem solving. The enhancement had given him something remarkable, but the core of who he was remained unchanged. He was a bear who loved his cub that a shuttle descended from orbit, landing at the station's pad. Dignitaries and scientists climbed out, here to see the famous pair. Lily had become a symbol of hope, of the bonds between species, of humanity's capacity to form families beyond traditional boundaries. She hated the attention. Atlas hated it more. The bear saw the visitors and immediately moved to position himself between them and Lily. His body language was clear. Approach carefully or don't approach at all. Beth went down to handle the diplomats. She'll join you for lunch. But Atlas comes with her, and they both need space. The visitors agreed quickly. No one wanted to upset a bear who had killed a professional assassin while riddled with bullets and burns. During lunch, Lily sat next to Atlas and answered questions politely. Yes, she was doing well. Yes, she missed her parents. Yes, Atlas was her best friend. No, she didn't want to leave Redwood Haven. This was home. A Vastari diplomat approached carefully, mindful of the bear's watchful gaze. This was not Siren. That assassin had been found dead in their ship 3 days after the attack, succumbed to injuries. But the species wanted to make amends for one of their own trying to murder a child. On behalf of the Vastari clans, the diplomat said formally, "We offer deepest apologies and reparations." Lily looked at the insectoid diplomat with serious eyes. "Did you know what was happening?" "No, young one. The individual acted alone, contracted by corrupt elements outside our government." "Then you don't need to apologize. You didn't hurt me." She reached over and placed her hand on Atlas's head. And the one who tried didn't succeed. The diplomat's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval or relief. "You are wise beyond your years. I learned from my parents. And from Atlas." After the visitors left, Lily and Atlas returned to their meadow. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The girl sat quietly, thinking about her parents, about everything that had changed. "Do you miss them too?" she asked the bear. Atlas made a low rumbling sound and leaned against her gently. Careful not to knock her over, but firm enough to provide comfort. "I think they'd be proud of you," Lily continued. "You kept me safe like they asked. You never gave up." The bear's dark eyes reflected the sunset. In them, Lily saw intelligence and understanding and something that looked like sadness. Atlas remembered her parents too. Remembered the people who had saved him when he was small and sick, who had trusted him with their most precious treasure. "We'll be okay," Lily said, putting her arms around as much of the bear as she could reach. "We have each other." Beth joined them as stars began appearing. Real stars, not the artificial lights of Earth's crowded skies. Out here on the frontier, you could see the galaxy spread across the darkness like scattered diamonds. "There's been another request," Beth said carefully. "Another colony wants to start a Guardian program. They're asking if you'd visit, share your story." "Will Atlas come?" "They're specifically asking for both of you." Lily thought about it. "Okay, but we come back here after. This is home. Always, Beth promised. Atlas huffed his agreement. They sat together until the stars were fully visible, a small family bound by loss and survival and love. The grizzly bear who had refused to let an assassin take his cub. The child who had trusted him completely. The woman who had recognized that some bonds transcended species. Tomorrow they would face new challenges. There would be more visitors, more attention, more responsibilities. But tonight they just watched the stars and were grateful. The assassin had aimed for the human child. The grizzly had made sure they never returned. And in doing so, he had shown the galaxy something important. Family wasn't about species or biology. It was about who you protected, who you stood beside, who you refused to abandon no matter the cost. Lily fell asleep against Atlas's side, warm and safe. The bear kept watch like he always did, eyes scanning the darkness for threats that would never come. His cub was safe. His family was whole. That was enough.